This is a video to show you how to replace a shifter, cable, and housing on an ETX Summit 8R. First thing I'm going to do is lift the rear wheel up so we can get access to the hub. Put my foot in the middle of the front beam, push down, lift up, and now I have access to the rear hub. Take your 2mm wrench from your toolkit, place it into the hole of part of the cassette joint, rotate it backwards to free up a little cable, and pull out the fixing nut from the cassette joint. Right? Pull the cable housing down here so that becomes free. We're going to take this fixing nut off and the cable end off first. With a pair of pliers, hold on to the fixing nut on the flat side, use a 10mm wrench on the other side, loosen that nut so that the fixing nut can slide along the cable. Take the pair of pliers, crimp this cable end and pull that off, and now pull the cable fixing bolt off of the cable like that. Straighten this out as best you can because we're going to slide this back through the cable housing a little bit. So I'm going to take that and bend it a little bit to straighten it. Alright? Now, with a screwdriver, take off these two clips that hold the cable housing to the chainstay back here. There's one of the little clips. Release your cable housing. And another one is actually behind the crank arm. Right there. And I'm going to lift this out here like this. So the cable housing is now free. And I'm going to pull it down like this so it's completely free. Alright? Now that we have the cable loose from the hub back here and we've taken the parts off of the cable, we're going to pull the housing out of this rear. This is the frame bone. This is the rear hole of the frame bone. Here's the front hole of the frame bone. There's the lower hole of the head tube, and then there's the top hole of the crossbar. The shifter cable comes all the way up here, and we're going to pull it all the way through this frame and come out that hole. Now, each one of these holes has a little plastic cable guide that we have to pop out of the hole to get the cable to come through. Okay, there's one there. There's one up here. You can just pull on this and the cable guide will come loose. And then the cable guide right here, and if you have to, you can use a screwdriver to help pry this free like that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull this shifter cable all the way down from up here. We're going to pull it out of this point, like this. And then we're going to start shoving it through this location, leaving behind the cable, because that's going to guide the cable housing back in again, the new one. So we're going to pull this down like this. It's going to go down inside the hole there. Okay, now here's the cable housing here. The cable's still in it. And now we're going to pull this out on this end. And we're going to shove it through here like this. So it goes in the front hole of the frame and it comes out the rear hole of the frame. There's our cable guide. We can slide that off the end. Like that, leave that off to the side, and we're going to keep shoving this cable all the way through. There's the cable guides. We'll leave those on the cable like this. Okay, we're going to shove the cable housing in there. It's going to come all the way through the back side. Okay, there's the cable housing coming out. There's the cable left over. Alright, we have the cable housing completely out of the frame, and we left the cable behind. We're going to take the new cable housing and we're going to shove it through the frame. We're going to route it through the frame using the old cable as our guide. And it's going to go all the way through, all the way up to here. Okay? So the first thing we'll do is take our new cable housing and we're going to shove the end of the cable into the new cable housing as far as it will go, So just get it started right there. And that's going to go all the way in up to this point, right here. Okay? Now, we're going to guide this cable housing through the main frame into the rear hole and out of the front hole by easing the cable housing in and pulling the cable out at the same time. So I'm pushing this cable in and I'm pushing the cable housing in here and I'm pulling the cable out with it as it comes out this way. And it's going to keep on coming. I'm going to pull them out in at the same length so that this cable housing appears at this hole right there and it comes out. Okay? I'm going to shove a little bit more of this cable into the cable housing, and then we're going to pull the cable all the way through this, like this, and keep pulling it through, like this, until we have just enough cable back here to reach the hub. Okay, so we're going to leave about that much there. Now, over on this end, we have a cable housing, and we have a cable, and I'm going to shove this cable in. It won't go in all the way because there's still a little bit of cable bends on the end where those fixing nuts were. But we're going to take this now, we're going to use this cable as a way of guiding the cable housing up through the head tube, through the lower hole, and out of the crossbar hole at the top. Just like we did for the main frame, we're going to do the same thing through this one. So I'm going to pull these two cable guides down off of the cable onto the cable housing. Okay, we don't need those in the way. And now I'm going to start pushing this cable housing into this hole and using the cable at the top here to guide it out the top. There it is. Okay, the cable comes out. All right, now we're going to keep pulling this cable up, the cable housing up, and we're going to ease the cable housing into this lower hole down here. So we have a little loop like this. Okay, we can attach these after we get everything set, but now we have the cable housing, the new one, all the way back up here to the shifter. All right, so our cable housing has been replaced from down here at the hub all the way through the frame up to this point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this old cable and we're going to replace it because it's too short as well. So we're going to pull this back out here like this. Okay, and now we're going to take the cable out of the shifter, put the new cable in, shove the new cable all the way through the new cable housing until it comes out at the hub end, and then we'll reattach the fixing bolt and the ferrule at the end and hook that back to the hub itself. Now we're at the shifter, and we're going to take the cable, the old cable, out of the shifter through a little porthole here. It's just to the left of where your window is for gears. There's a little rubber stopper that covers that up. And right inside there, there's a little white piece of plastic that holds the end of the cable, the bead of the cable. And we're going to push the cable up into the barrel adjuster down here. We're going to push it up in there, and it's going to come out that hole right on this side. Now, to help push that up, you may take your pliers so you can grip the cable a little bit and push that up a little bit here. Shake this cable back and forth, or the shifter back and forth, and there the bead of the cable comes out. Okay? So there it is. Now, we're going to pull this cable all the way through this hole, this little porthole here, and then we're going to take a new cable that's the right length, and we're going to push it back through this hole and have it come back out here with the adjuster. Okay, so you have to keep the shifter in gear number 1. Now that we took the old cable out, we're going to put the new cable in. Keep this in gear number 1. There's a little place where you can push this in. You'll feel it go through the hole. Push it in this way, and the cable then comes out of the barrel adjuster here. And we're going to pull this cable all the way through. And on the other side here where the hole is, we're going to pull this cable all the way in. The cable gets pulled all the way through until this little bead goes back in there and nestles right inside the hole. Let me close this up. Now the new cable is in through the shifter. Now that the new cable is all the way through the shifter, and this is the new housing, we're going to insert the cable into the housing, and we're going to push this all the way through until it comes out of the hub end. We'll pull the cable through the housing on the hub end to tighten this last little bit up here. Here's the cable coming through. We pull this, and then that goes up inside. Now that we have the new cable and the new cable housing in place, we're going to put this last cable guide back on, because that's going to help secure the cable into the frame here on the rear hole. But now we have to reroute the cable housing underneath this part, and right here, I want to show you right down here, underneath here, is the clip that this thing fits under. Okay, so there's a little clip right there that this thing fits on. That's the one we took off originally. We're going to snap that one back on. That clip goes in right there. It goes like that, holds it there. And then there's another clip over here that we took off. We're going to put that one back on as well. Like that. Okay. The next thing to do is to put the fixing nut on here and measure it to make sure it's 100 millimeters. Here's the fixing nut. The cable slides into that little hole right there, all the way through. Tighten it up just a little bit so you can see. We put the fixing nut on there. The shifter's in first gear, and we've pulled on this cable out of the housing to make sure it's as far out as it can get. And then we set this fixing nut so that the center of the fixing nut is 100 millimeters from the end of the cable housing. Right there. All right, now we're going to tighten this up. All right, that's tight. We're going to put the little ferrule back on the end again so that the cable doesn't fray, and squeeze that on. Alright, now we're going to ease the cable housing out a little bit this way so that the cable housing fits into this arm of the cassette pulley, just like that. And it slides up in there, just like that. It's all fit in. We'll take our 2 millimeter Allen wrench right here. We're going to put it in this little hole right there. Rotate this down and slide our fixing bolt back up inside that little spot, like that, and then let the cable run down underneath. Okay? One more thing I forgot. We're going to take these little cable guides and we're going to push them back into the frame like that. One down here. Okay, all done.